Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Thank you for agreeing to co-sponsor this event. We're really happy to be able to bring Ras Baraka here for such an important occasion. This is a celebration of two of our beloved and famous African-American poets, Dudley Randall and Robert Hayden, whose birthdays come very close together, and so we're celebrating them as birthday centennial figures. And this was the idea of Dr. Melba Boyd, and I just want you to know that she's in the auditorium this evening, so can you please? So this whole year, we're going to be celebrating these two famous poets in a variety of events and activities, and I hope you'll watch for announcements and notices about them. Ras Baraka's collection of poems, Black Girls Learn Love Hard, written after the loss of his sister to domestic violence, continues to receive enthusiastic reviews. He was featured as the narrator of several interludes on singer Lauryn Hill's 1998 album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. He also recorded an unreleased single with Hill entitled Hot Beverage in the Winter, which was later featured on his spoken word album, Shorty for Mayor. He will be signing his book, Black Girls Learn Love Hard, after the presentation, and I think we'll take some time for questions and answers so you'll get to talk with him for a little while, okay? So with that, please, Mr. Ras Baraka.
Brought back a few memories. It's a pleasure to be in Detroit. It always is. You know, Detroit has a serious cultural feel, social history that hopefully people are learning about in the public school system and at the university. So if that's not happening, then, you know, there's some people that need to make sure that it happens because our history is valuable. It is taught through our poetry, our song, our music, our dance, especially since they can't teach it in class. More often than none, we have to learn about it in places and spaces such as this, conveniently enough. I am a city councilman in Newark, New Jersey, in the South Ward, the most densely populated African-American ward in the city, which means we have the most crime and poverty. I have been involved in politics for a very long time and involved in community activism for an even longer time. I think that you know, I was prepared for the moment that we're about to encounter next year in May of 2014. I'm running for mayor in the city of Newark. People always ask me how was my childhood, and you know that's a long and strange question to me. But you know, I guess when you were growing up, you didn't think that it was anything spectacular. When I was a child, I had the opportunity to hear Nina Simone play the piano in my living room. And you know, I just thought she was a crazy lady on the piano. And you know, later on you found out she was a giant and is a giant. You know, my brother was taught by Max Roach to play the drums in the basement of my father's home. You know, so my house was a household of art and culture and poetry and politics. So it's not a wonderment that I'm involved in politics and in a way that I am involved in it. You know, these inner cities, and I'm going to read some poetry. My dad tells me all the time, you better read some poetry or you're going to lose your poetry license. I get that from him, you know. Whenever he goes, they book him to read poetry, he gives a speech. When they book him to give a speech, he reads some poetry. So I'm trying to figure out. I watch him like, what are you doing? You know, so he does a little both, keeps them off balance. He always does that, you know. So I'm going to read a little poetry, and I'm going to give you a little information at the same time. These inner cities where we are in America, where we have populated these places, most of us are still in the South. You know, we have made an exodus back to the South, but these inner cities are becoming now places of interest for America again. There is an actual change in the movement of American cities. Before, people were coming to cities, they're moving out of cities, and now there's a return to these cities once again. So these cities are becoming very popular and very interesting for corporate interests and other folks like that once again. So your house becomes valuable, your street, your backyard, the building across the street from your neighborhood becomes valuable to you once again. When we try to get out of the cities, there are people who are actually more interested in coming into these municipalities, and we should keep our eye on that. You know, almost 80% of America's gross national product comes from these inner cities where we are every single day. America breathes, lives, runs because these municipalities like Detroit. So it's important that we understand that and leverage all of the institutions and resources that we have in the city to empower the people who lived here, who stayed here through rebellion, through poverty, through abandonment, you know, through all of those times. And so now that people want to return to these cities, we have to hold our spot. That's right. Right? That's right. We have to hold our spot so that when development comes, that we are developed with it. Right? You can't allow your location to define your destination. And sometimes we're so focused on what's happening now, we can't ever see what's promised to us. Right? And a lot of us, you know, being in politics, I've learned a lot of us settle for a lot right now than everything at the right time. So most of us just want a lot right now. Some of us just want some right now. And whoever's got some or got a lot, we going to where they are. Because it's too difficult to get a lot or to get everything. But you've been promised everything, but it's too difficult to get. So we don't want to stay on that difficult road to get everything, because everything belongs to you. And if you stay and be patient and struggle, you'll get everything. And I have been taught that through the history of struggle for democracy and our people in this country, that we fought to make this place a little bit more democratic. Every decade, every century, we fought and fought and fought to be able to have people go around the world and brag about the democracy that America has. That would not have that if there wasn't people in this country right here in Detroit who fought to make America the democratic place that it tries to brag about around the world. You know, that people would still have slavery in the United States if it wasn't for our struggle. They would still have Jim Crow in the United States if it wasn't for our struggle. They still would be suppressing and oppressing women's right to vote, to speak, to live, to give birth, to all of these things. If people wouldn't have struggled in this country, we'd still be having insane labor laws. You know, that in this country, if people wouldn't have struggled and fought for more democracy in America. And that is the history that we need to praise. And that history is often taken away from us. We're never able to read or study or understand that. So our children don't know or embrace who they are. They think they were born in poverty, in the projects, on a block with nothing. And their hope and their future rest in their position right now. So they don't know that they came from something greater, that the fight is huge and wider than just the neighborhood that you live in. I tell the kids, that you're not from Avon Avenue and Irvin Turner Boulevard. That's the neighborhoods in my city. You didn't originate there. You shouldn't be fighting for a block in a neighborhood that limits you. If you understood who you are, like you will understand that the world belongs to you, and you shouldn't claim a piece of it. You should claim all of it. And when you begin to claim all of it, you fight for the whole of humanity. Right. And when you fight for the whole of humanity, you help us become freer. And you begin to, in essence, change your immediate condition. Because when you struggle for what's better and for what's right, then your condition changes. Even your mental state changes. Right? Your mental state changes. You know, what you aspire to be or want to have in the world changes. So I'm a principal, and you can see that, right? So, and it's coming out. So every day we have this struggle. Right now we've had the highest spikes in murders in the city that we've had in a long time. Like 5 people being killed a day, things like that, you know, and that is not germane to Newark. right?
Right. We thought you were talking about Detroit.
Right. So all over the country where we are, this is what's happening. So people try to make it a local issue because as long as it's a local issue, you don't only gonna have to be responsible for it. But when you make it a national issue, then everybody has to be responsible for it. And they get to hang the local ills on local people and say that you're not smart enough, you're not organized enough, you're mismanaging things, you're thieves, you're corrupt, and so this is why it doesn't work. We don't know that African Americans and Latinos have been in poverty and unemployment in America. The unemployment rate for black men has been twice, even 3 times that of the national unemployment rate for the last 50 years. In almost every city that you go to. So it doesn't become a local issue. Now it's a systemic problem that somebody has to address on a national level and a state level. Needs to be addressed. So murder is happening in our community. The leading cause of death for us in these communities is homicide. Not cancer, not AIDS. Homicide for African American males is the leading cause of death. So the whole struggle around the school system is happening all over the country in every city where you are. Every city in this place is fighting over public schools. And some of us believe that the fight is actually about improving the public school system. When that's the last public sector left, right? That's the last of the market left. In Newark, very small city, the school board budget is over $1 billion. So in municipalities like Detroit or New Orleans or New York City or Miami-Dade County or LA County, the budgets of those school systems is billions and billions and billions of dollars. And the strangest thing about it is that most of these school budgets are run by black and brown people. That means we in charge of the money in our neighborhood. So, that's a whole nother discussion, right? To say, we need black schools, and I never understood what they was talking about, because every school I went to was a black school. I mean, segregation is alive and well. Every school I went to was a black school, so people, I used to go, when I was at Howard, I said, we need black schools. I've never seen any other kind of school. My elementary school was that way, 80–90% African American. I had black principals. I mean, everywhere I went to schools in my city called George Washington Carver Elementary, Harriet Tubman Elementary School. I mean, these are the schools we got. So I don't know what you're talking about when you say we need a black school. I don't know what planet you live on, but most of us, 70% of African Americans still go to segregated schools. So that the universities are calling apartheid schools in America because they're not only intensely segregated, but they're intensely impoverished, which means they're double segregated. They're black and poor, or mostly Latino and poor. So I don't know any other school you're talking about. Are you saying that we need power? Now that's something different. Right, so let me read you a poem. And I'm going to read out of Black Girls Learn Love Hard. I want to thank my friend, colleague, Jessica Caremore for publishing this book for me. This actually kept me sane when I lost my sister. I think everybody was losing their mind, and I started writing immediately. And this is what came out of it. And when I read it, it takes me back to those moments, but it also helps me to have clarity and balance and all of the things that I need, so I don't go hurt a few people. I wrote 10 poems at first, and I didn't have any names for them, so I just numbered them 1 through 10. And I wrote them in that order, 1, 2, 3, 4, like back to back to back.